All right, so in this segment, we're going to talk about making a flat. Now, in making a flat, you need two different types of lumber. You need 1x4s, and you need something called Luan. Now, Luan looks a lot like this over here. It's a very thin piece of wood, and this is a full sheet. And when making a 4x8 flat, we're going to use a full sheet of Luan. So now that we got our lumber together, we're going to go ahead and start cutting. All right, just like we did in the last segment, we measured and marked our lumber. We're going to do the same thing here. Now, our cut list on this one is that we have 3 different cuts that we have to make. We have to make a 7-foot 10.5 cut, a 2 4-foot cuts, and a 3-foot 10.5 cut. We're going to make sure we measure those out. So we're going to measure down to 7-foot 10.5. And so 7 foot 10.5. It's going to look like this. Now, some of your tape measures are a little funky, you might see. And so 7 foot 10 is 94.5 inches. So just make sure you know how to convert that. We're going to make our straight line. Same thing as we did before, a little arrow lets us know, and then the X lets us know we're not going to use it. You're going to do that for all of your cuts. So your 4-foot cut, your 3-foot 10.5 cut, and your 7-foot 10.5 cut, both of them. And then we're going to go through and cut those. So next, we're going to cut the boards. Just as before, you want to make sure you have your safety goggles on. We have our line, we're going to line it up just as we did like with the 2x4s, but these are 1x4s, so they're not as thick. So we're going to line it up right to the edge of the blade, start our saw up. Slowly cut through. We're going to do this for every single cut. We're not going to show you that because we just showed you once. So now we're going to put the frame together. Just as we did with the 2x4s, we're going to go through and line this up. We're going to pilot the holes. On this, I like to kind of know where it's going to pilot to. So I kind of get it figured out so I don't get too close to the edge. Because it is a very thin board. So we'll pilot. So that gives me an idea. Go to the other end, do the same thing. Now you're going to do this on all of your 4-foot boards because your 3-foot 10.5 goes in the middle. You don't need to pilot that board because you're going to pilot the outside edges of the 7-foot 10.5. So now that we've got it piloted, we're going to go through and put it together, making sure it's flush on the sides here and the top. Get that screwed in nice and tight. And you're going to go around and do that for all 4 corners. And we're not going to show you that, but we'll come back and show you the middle. The last thing that we do is we're going to put our board, our 3-foot 10.5 board, in the middle. Now, in order to do that, we need to measure to 4 foot because this is an 8-foot platform. So we're going to measure from the end to 4 foot. Go through, make our little tick mark to the edge. I'm going to pass this over to Jeremy. He's going to do the other side. Now, I do want to talk about the fact that the reason this board is 3-foot 10.5 is because of the thickness of our 1x4. Even though it says 1x4, the 1x4 is actually 3/4 of an inch. So if we add 3/4 plus 3/4, that equals 1.5 inches. Which means if we want this to be 4 foot wide, we have to take 3.5 inches off the middle board because of the width of our 2 1x4s. So you want to keep that in account. Always take into account how wide your board is when you're doing a board in the middle. Just always think about that. Now we're going to screw these in just like we did before. We're going to pilot the holes and we're going to make sure that it doesn't split on us. So we're going to center it. Once we get this in, we'll have a nice frame. We'll come back and we'll show you how to put the top on. So the first thing you want to do is grab the right screws. So we're going to use 1.25 inch screws because we're going through really thin Luan. It's the shortest screw we have in the shop, so that's why we're using it. You're going to go through and make sure, like we did before, that we have a nice corner that is flush. We're going to screw this in. If it moves on you, just make sure it goes back. We're going to do the same thing we did before, making sure that this is flush all the way down. Now, like we did with the platform, we're gonna have Jeremy move it back and forth. I'm gonna go down the side and get it flushed all the way down. Now, I don't have to show you this process because we did it before with the plywood. You're gonna do the same thing. Move it left, move it right. Make sure it's flush on the end before you put in your screw. So when we're done, we're gonna show you how to clean up the shop. When you get done cutting, you're gonna have some scraps. Sometimes they're too small to use, and so you wanna make sure and throw those away. Best way for them is in a trash can. If the scraps are longer than 2 foot, you're gonna bring them back and put them in the wood rack in the back of the room. The other thing you need to make sure you do is roll up all your cords. We have this kind that you roll up here. We also have some that you roll up and put on the wall. And we're gonna make sure those all go up. We also have tools like this that need to go back in the tool area. And Jeremy's gonna put those in the correct drawers that are labeled drills, tape measures, and so on. The last thing that we need to do is sweep up the floor. So we're gonna sweep the floor and make sure that all the sawdust is off of the floor and also off of the saws. So thank you for watching our video, and we hope that now you know how to make a flat and a platform.